Hi, hello! Today we're discussing the two Tom Ford quads that I purchased in the year of 2022 in my series revisiting all the palettes that I have purchased in this past year. There are a couple of things that I would like to discuss throughout this video together with you. I'm going to start doing my makeup, and that is my first point of discussion. So I do a lot of these like eyeshadow centered videos in a get ready with me style. So you don't just see the eyeshadow palette or like eyeshadow content, you also see everything around it and listen to my ramblings. And my question is, do you prefer that kind of style? Do you prefer just like a chill, longer style video, get ready with me, where I ramble about random things, including some personal things about my life? Or do you say, if you're doing a video about say Tom Ford eyeshadow quads, then don't bother us with the rest of the makeup application? Or do you want me to do the makeup application like for the rest of the face in some sort of other style? I know Martina likes to do that in like a speed through style. I personally really enjoy this style where we just apply everything together, because what I really enjoy about the non-eyeshadow makeup portion of these videos is that I can also demo a lot of my like face products with you. Because of course a lot of my content is focused on eyeshadow, because it is, the most exciting thing and the thing that people come to watch the most and the thing that I'm the most excited about. But at the same time, that means that face products like blushes, bronzers, foundations, that kind of thing, they don't really ever get mentioned anymore, unless it's like in a monthly roundup and empties, and I want to talk to you about those as well in a little bit. So if I were to continue doing what my personal preference is, I am definitely going to continue doing these videos in like chatty get ready with me style, unless I'm in a hurry and I really only have time to film the eyeshadow portion. If I have time to film the rest, I will film the rest. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that point. And my second point is, as I mentioned, monthly roundup and empties. Sorry, I'm just kind of like showing you without really saying what I'm using, because I basically use almost the same things in every single video. So if you have any questions about like the base makeup, just let me know. I am trying my best here to finish this concealer, the First Aid Beauty Bendy Avocado concealer in the shade 2, which is I think fair, because I can feel that we are almost at the finish line here. I'm really starting to like scraping the walls, and as soon as I finish this concealer, I am allowed to try... Oh, I forgot to do my brows. One second. I'm allowed to try the Huda concealer that everyone's been raving about this year. I think both Charlotte and I just watched a video from Martina where she was also talking about that concealer, and Martina's tried a fair amount of concealers. If she says this concealer is so amazing, I am willing to give it a try. However, I am only allowed to buy it if I have finished this Bendy Avocado concealer, because that will bring down the number of concealers that I have to 3. 2 of them which are way too dark for me to use right now. I just like to finish and like rotate through these kind of products instead of just piling them up in my drawers, because then I start to feel really overwhelmed. Like I can start feeling overwhelmed with my eyeshadows or blushes, but much so than I do with base products like foundations, concealers, eyeshadow primer, stuff like that. I really hate having too many of those. So, but like, let's circle back to the topic that I was discussing before, which is my monthly roundup and empties videos, which I am so proud to say that I managed to do for a full year. I have a whole playlist if you're interested to go and watch it. I'm going to take my MAC Studio Waterweight foundation, lovely foundation by the way, but we're going to talk about it in a monthly roundup and empties, if you're interested in me keeping this series. So the question for you is, would you like me to keep this series? I did actually have it in the description box of my latest monthly roundup and empties for the month of November, this question whether you would be interested in me to keep this series, but I know a lot of you probably didn't read the description box or forgot about it, so I want to like discuss it with you now in this video, so that you're a bit more actively engaged in the conversation and you know the considerations that I have for yes, continuing this series, or no, discontinuing this series. And the biggest thing about this is I don't really buy that much makeup. Like I buy a fair amount of makeup for the regular Joe standards, but for YouTube standards I buy peanuts in terms of amounts of makeup. So I end up talking about the same products quite often. You see them used in Chatty Get Ready With Me's, you see them when I demo them, then you see them in my monthly roundup and empties, and sometimes they pop up also in like my yearly favorites. And I have this also like same feeling with the eyeshadow palettes and this like revisiting series. I actually thought you would be super bored by this. A lot of you have said that you really enjoy it, which surprised me in a really positive way, but you do know that I'm also going to be ranking these palettes in like a week or something, so I'm going to end up talking about them again. So the question is, do you notice when I'm, you know, a little bit repetitive with my thoughts about certain products? Because I'm not going to change my mind about things, you know. I'm not going to like sway my opinion 180 degrees and all of a sudden say completely different things about it. And if I do, that's going to make for like really interesting content. But in the meantime, when I talk about products, I often, you know, will describe them similarly or have similar thoughts. So there is a little bit of repetitiveness in that kind of content, and that is almost unavoidable when you don't buy too much makeup. I am not a review channel, so I can't always, you know, rotate through different makeup. I don't want to be a review channel. I have no aspirations to be that. Taking the Gucci powder now. But because of all of these considerations, I want to know, do you notice that the content is repetitive? Because it may also be that you have watched one video but you haven't really watched the other one, or my monthly roundup and empties was so long ago that you already forgot what I said about the product. Because the matter of fact is, I know what I said, and I know that for me it is repetitive to sometimes say the same thing over and over again or in a slightly different way. But for you, maybe it's all brand new information because you don't really care about remembering my thoughts after every single video. I am just very curious how you are all experiencing this and what your thoughts about it are. No better brand to pair with Tom Ford than Victoria Beckham's brand. Let's just go full-on out luxury while I'm at home looking like a slob. The irony. I am basically going to like just do a little bit of mixy mix of these two shades because I actually like using them together. I've really enjoyed using the makeup from Victoria Beckham, and I have one word for you: neutral. This makeup is very neutral toned. She has really nailed making products which are very like neutral in their tones. I'm also going to take my blush from Victoria Beckham. This is in the shade Playground. Now this is so tiny that I'm a little bit afraid that I'm going to break it off if I use like a brush to scrape off product. So I'm actually going to do something different. I'm going to draw a little bit here on the back of my hand, and then I'm going to use a brush to pick up the product like this, and I'm just going to use my little fupa here from Koyudo in order to do that, and I'm going to just transfer it onto my skin like that. So those are a little bit my questions for you, and I would really love to hear your input because of course you are the ones watching the videos and commenting. So to summarize, the fate of monthly roundup and empties is now entirely in your hands. If you are bored with these, I'm going to discontinue them. I think it will be a bit of a shame because it's also a really good time for me to talk about my makeup empties and my skincare empties. Although again, with my skincare, I'm basically using the same types of products. I very rarely try completely new skin type products. I'm always talking about the same products because I'm repurchasing the same products. That is also the reason I didn't include skincare favorites in this year's yearly favorites, because basically everything that I talked about last year remains my favorite this year, and I haven't really purchased anything new in terms of skincare that impressed me so much that I would like to talk about. So let's take my beloved Golden Moonlight from Pat McGrath Labs to highlight. I think it is going to perfectly fit the look that I am going for. By the way, has anyone had their Star Wars orders being shipped out? Because I don't think I've seen anyone besides Alicia who got some of the products from that launch in a goodie bag during the Star Wars launch party that Pat McGrath organized, I want to say, in New York City. Besides her, I haven't really seen anyone else talk about these on YouTube. And just a little side note, based on the comparison swatches she did between the shades from the Sith palette and the Midnight Sun palette, the shades between the two are extremely similar. I'm quickly going to show you the two quads that I have purchased from Tom Ford. The first one came in this limited edition packaging, but the quad itself, like the eyeshadows in here, are not limited edition. This is just his body heat quad. This comes in his wet and dry formula. And the other quad that I have does actually come from a limited edition packaging that is no longer available, and I was able to find it in an outlet store here in the Netherlands, and this is the Soleil Lune, which was part of a very popular limited edition collection from Tom Ford, also in his wet and dry formula. Now I'm going to zoom you in. We are actually going to do a little bit of a mashup of these two quads together. Now the look I have in mind is going to be rather simple, because the reason I bought these quads was also to do these sort of like very simple but effective looks with like a very fuss-free, I don't even have to be fully awake to apply kind of formula. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this shade from the Body Heat quad, which is this really interesting like rusty rosy terracotta color. I really like that shade. And then on that's going to go like on the like outer portion of my lids and blend it into the crease. And then in the inner part of my eyelids, I'm going to take this eyeshadow here from the Soleil Lune quad, which is a beautiful champagne, but a slightly darker champagne than the one that is present in the Body Heat quad. So if you can see like this next to each other, there's quite a difference in the tone, with the one from the Soleil Lune being just slightly deeper, and I really like this shade. Like this shade from Tom Ford is probably my favorite out of all the 8 eyeshadows that are in here. And then I'm probably going to layer a bit of the champagne one like sort of in the middle of the lid, and we shall see about like lower lash line, inner corner, that kind of thing, but I'm probably going to keep it rather simple. I'm taking the Rusty shade on a Crease Pro, I want to say. Yeah, the Crease Pro from Sonia G. It's a very nice brush in order to apply shades and also blend them out. And so Tom Ford, first of all, the man, the individual, the designer, Tom Ford is, I think, an incredible human being. Tom Ford is one of the most impressive humans to have ever walked the earth. He's beautiful, like visually speaking, he himself as a man is absolutely beautiful. He's so talented in terms of fashion and everything that he does with his like fashion brands, not only with clothing but also his makeup line, and his perfumes are so special. And then he went on and made movies, and he won like an Oscar for one of them. And I can tell you that movie that won an Oscar is one of the most hauntingly beautiful things that I've ever watched. And I think I knew that it was him who directed the movie when I watched it, but after that I had a whole new level of appreciation and love for Tom Ford. So I love Tom Ford the individual and Tom Ford the designer. And can we talk about this eyeshadow and how beautiful and effortlessly it blended out? And here I want to make a little like comment about his eyeshadows. I don't care much for his normal formula. I did try one of his quads a while back in his normal formula, and I returned that quad. It is the only makeup item that I have ever returned in my life because it was just so deeply unimpressive and it cost me almost 80 euros. So I returned that. Didn't care for it. However, both of these quads are in his wet and dry formula. And his wet and dry formula is essentially a baked gelée. I have a real weakness for products in baked gelée formulas, not only eyeshadows, but like bronzers, blushes, highlighters. And because they are in that sweet baked gelée formula, they are incredibly lightweight on the lids. They have a little bit of that blurring, smoothing properties on your lids. So I think they would look particularly good on people with a little bit of texture on their eyelids, and they blend out so effortlessly. Like you just do one sweep of your brush and these are basically blended out. I think if you felt really lazy, you could probably blend these out with your fingers. And by the way, I don't use them over any sort of like glitter base. I'm going to use the same brush because I'm feeling particularly lazy, and I'm going to go into the shade from the Soleil Lune quad. And the Soleil Lune quad, if that tells you anything, I took that quad with me when I went on holiday and I used the crap out of it. Because when I go on holiday, I don't have time to fuss around with complicated Pat McGrath type looks. although I did take one of my Pat McGrath quads with me and I also used the crap out of that. I can link the video if you're interested to watch it, because I talked about all the makeup that I took with me with me traveling when I went on holiday in the summer. I'm going to pick up a little bit more and demo what happens to this eyeshadow when you wet it, because that's the whole idea, that you can use these dry or you can use them wet for a little bit more of like a shiny glitz effect. So I'm going to specifically wet my brush to apply this shade here towards the inner portion of my lid. And I'm also going to pause this video a bit and go downstairs and see what's going on, because I heard a weird noise. And Lisa should be downstairs, probably up to no good. I'm going to use the opportunity that this brush is still a little bit wet, and I'm going to take this shade from the Body Heat quad, which is like a lighter sort of champagne, and I'm going to pop that right here in the very center of the lid for a little bit more dimension. It's not really going to do that much, but it might create a little bit more dimension in the center of the lid. No, actually, I don't think it's doing anything. Of course, our orange friend was back. That guy just comes and hangs out. I'm just going to take this whitish type of shade to put in the inner corners of my eyes. Now, these formulas are so much more basic and dull compared to the level of sparkle and glitter that we are used to getting from Pat McGrath Labs. So if anyone was buying these quads expecting to be wowed by how sparkly and shiny these are, then they're going to be bitterly disappointed. These are so much more subtle. They're very elegant, but they're so much more subtle. So you need to be in the mood, you need to be in a specific kind of mood in order to enjoy these eyeshadows. I obviously don't wear these every other day like I do my Pat McGrath eyeshadows. By the way, I'm just going to be taking the rusty shade here on my lower lashes and calling it a day, because I actually really love wearing this look like also on the daily. But I think there is a time and a place for an eyeshadow like this. Like if I'm doing something or meeting someone where I don't want to like scare them off with all the glitter, or I'm super in a hurry in the morning and I literally have just a few minutes to throw on some eyeshadow, but I want to still look really put together, I will very often think of my Tom Ford quads. So I always take these opportunities to make use of these eyeshadows. I absolutely don't regret having these in my collection, but I'm also not going to go out now and start collecting Tom Ford quads, because between these two I'm sort of settled on all the neutral eyeshadows that I could ever want from Tom Ford. And like I said, only his wet and dry formula has any sort of like appeal to me. That sun really came out with a vengeance. This is the final look, extremely simple. I paired it with a red lipstick, and this is the shade, one of the Elsons. This is Elson 5 from the Satinallure line that was released with the Bridgerton 2 collection from Pat McGrath Labs. I don't really talk about this lipstick anymore, but it is actually a really good formula, you guys. And this is a really good shade of red. Packaging, questionable, a little bit cheap, a little bit tacky for Pat McGrath Labs standards, but the actual formula and the color, which is more of like a classic red, are really gorgeous. Especially if your preference goes to more creamy lipstick formulas rather than the more matte ones, because Lisa Eldridge certainly leans a bit more on the matte side, especially with her like more well-known red shades like Jazz and Dragon and Ribbon, and now the new one Duchess. They are all in her velvet formula, but they are matte. If you prefer something that is still very opaque, vivid and pigmented, but in a comfortable cream lipstick formula, then these Satinallures from Pat McGrath are actually really good. So to wrap up on Tom Ford, I have enjoyed my two quads. I really like having them in my collection. I do reach for them often enough to not feel like I've really wasted my money. They're not dusting away in oblivion in my drawers, so I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. But I do want to warn everyone who is very tempted to buy these thinking that they're going to get the same type of formula and texture as Pat McGrath. You are not. You're going to get a more lightweight, more like edited down version of her Blitz formula, because these are very similar to the Blitz formula, but without being that pigmented and that impactful. I look forward to your thoughts on all the topics that we discussed in the beginning of this video, because I truly appreciate your feedback, and I think this needs to be sort of like a two-way street. Obviously, I'm going to create the content that I enjoy, but you also, you know, you on the other side also need to enjoy it. So let's make the best out of it. Let me know what you think about it. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!